I've got a plethora of new and different indie movies, all of them unique, all of them a fine example of the little gems you can find if you look closer at indie horror. This is Low Budget Binge, and let's start binging. Low Budget Binge is where we venture down the path less traveled and look at low budget, no budget, and sometimes international films that never get that top billing you see with the usual Hollywood fare. I'll indicate in the review down below where you can find these films along with their trailers. Here we go. Vampire Clay, aka NUENDO, is streaming now on Arrow Films. I'll provide a link to Arrow Films down below before the comments. It's directed and written by Sôichi Umezawa. A struggling artist in a small Japanese art school happens upon clay made from the ashes of an ancient vampire, and when she applies water, the clay creature awakens. I found Vampire Clay to be a fascinating little film. Myself, I am a survivor of art school. Art school is not for the weak. In art school, not only are you tested to the edge of your abilities, but you're competing with your peers and sometimes, sadly, your teachers, who will not hesitate to destroy all of your hard work in a pointed and often immature critique. It's a brutal experience, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, save for those with the strongest of wills. So I guess it makes sense that the moments that sung to me in Vampire Clay revolved around the personal relationship between the students and the teachers and the discussions they had in the classroom. At its heart, Vampire Clay brings up a fascinating quandary. The Japanese kids strive to stand out as the best in their class, but in doing so, they must do an assignment in a specific accepted style that may get them into a large art school at a higher level. The discussion is specific to Japanese culture, which seems to strive for a level of technical perfection rather than highlight creativity, but I think it can be broadened to discuss art as a whole. This impasse comes upon making the decision to be an artist true to oneself or be an artist the school is trying to make you. This fascinating discussion takes place early in Vampire Clay as the students compete with one another for the attention and satisfaction of their instructor. At the same time, it brings up the frustrations of the teacher who is stuck teaching what looks to be the equivalent of a bachelor's level art course, while others have excelled to the graduate level. Again, it's about the tiered system of art, where high art is separated from the lower levels and the feelings that arise as one strives to rise to that next level. Now, Vampire Clay brings up these issues and raises these questions, but the way it answers them is not something I'd recommend. It's more moralistic, where the good are justified by what they believe in, though it may bring harm to others. All of this makes sense if you end up taking a chance with Vampire Clay. I found it to be more fascinating in that it brings up interesting questions about art and one's place in the pecking order, more so than all of the monster clay on the Rampage stuff. That stuff is rather mundane, and while the threat is ever present, it does so in a traditional and almost slasher-like way, attacking each student one by one, though I did appreciate this look into a different culture and the monster that came from it. The effects are going to be the real attractor to horrorphiles. Some of it is miniature claymation work, some of it is practical effects. All of it is quite imaginative, as the clay first appears as a substance that absorbs blood that falls into it, but soon becomes a walking and talking clay golem-like creature that absorbs the students and even takes their form, not unlike the Batman villain Clayface. There are a lot of creative takes on this monster that look a little like a Muppet, but its form is not very threatening looking. It does unleash a hell of a messy fury on these art students, though. The most effectively creepy moments involve the clay's power to make a person malleable like clay, especially the scenes where one's hands become boneless and flopping all around. It really makes for some disconcerting body horror that I haven't seen before. Personally, I love using clay as an art form, though it's not my medium of choice, so that interest, as well as the philosophical questions about art, were the things that impressed me the most about Vampire Clay. The rest of the stuff, the horror stuff, is good, but somehow took second seat to the themes that were delved into. I do like the way the film ends with a bigger threat on the horizon. I guess this one was such a hit, in Japan that a second film was released as well. I'd definitely be interested in where Vampire Clay 2 would take this concept, possibly taking the more philosophical themes further, as well as the fun claymation mayhem. Last Straw is new, streaming on Shudder. It's directed by Alan Scott Neal and written by Taylor Sardoni. Newly appointed manager Nancy, played by Jessica Belkin, is having a day. She just found out she's pregnant, her car died on her, and now she has to work the night shift at the diner with the creepy chef Jake, played by Taylor Kowalski. After throwing a group of Motor Viking kids out of the store, Nancy goes off on her staff for not helping her with the situation and ends up firing Jake for not treating her with respect. Now Nancy is alone in the diner for the night, and it looks like the creepy masked kids are back to torment her. Last Straw is a decent little thriller that tries to make things interesting with a little Rashomon action, meaning it tells the same story from a different number of perspectives. I give this film credit for taking such a tried and true concept of a waitress on the night shift alone at night and trying to spice things up with the shifting point of view. While some of the twists along the way are quite predictable, I do think the attempt is worth pointing out as the filmmakers try to do something a little different. I also think lead actress Jessica Belkin is very strong in the role of Nancy. She shows some very unappealing qualities in the opening moments that could have soured my attitude toward her, but the fact that she is a new manager trying to earn the respect of her co-workers was a unique problem that immediately made her sympathetic. Because she is a woman working with a bunch of guys, things are tough on Nancy. It doesn't help that she's the owner's daughter, so there's a lot of resentment towards her as she adjusts to this new position of power. While some might think it's contrived for her to fire the only guy she's supposed to work with that night, it makes sense that she's quick and nervous in this new role and wasn't thinking ahead when she fires Jake. The best way to let your employees know you mean business is to flex a little, and that's what she does. Her refusal of help by others shows how obstinate she is, and while this isn't smart, Belkin plays these complex feelings realistically, and it helps ground the story with emotional depth. And that's needed because there are a few gaping plot holes and just weird decisions made as Last Straw approaches its ending. The use of a meat vest, the fact that Nancy's friend sees she's in danger and just nopes out of the situation and is never seen again in the story, the way some are easily influenced to terrorize, commit crimes, and even kill, all of this doesn't really make a lot of sense. Now, I do like that most of the decisions are being made by someone high on crack, so the randomness of the crimes makes some kind of sense, but still, there's a lot of stuff here that happened for no reason and with no follow-up. That said, because Belkin is so good in the lead role, I was along for the ride with Last Straw. The action and kills, though kind of all over the place, is quite brutal. The masks the assailants wear are creepy as well, the performances are decent, and the film looks really good, playing like the strangers in a diner. While it's a common scenario, the way the story was told and its leads save this film from its plot holes and head-slapping leaps in logic. Unspeakable Beyond the Walls of Sleep is new on demand from Breaking Glass Films. It's directed by Chad Ferrin and written by Chad Ferrin and H.P. Lovecraft. Dream specialist Ambrose London, played by Edward Furlong, is assigned a new patient at Arkham Asylum. James Phelps, played by Robert Miano. Phelps' doctor, Dr. Bernard, played by Susan Priver, claims that Phelps has a very unique form of schizophrenia where he turns into a completely different and distinct personality named Joe Slater. Using a controversial technique which links him to a patient in order to visualize their dreams, Ambrose himself is touched by the cosmic forces that seem to inhabit Phelps/Slater and driven to the brink of madness. Meanwhile, Phelps/Slater shepherds in a new age of man controlled by both aggressive and sexual urges and pushes the world towards cosmic annihilation. You never know what you're going to get with a Chad Ferrin film. Are you going to get a neon-soaked, saxophone-laden detective noir like Nightcaller? Or maybe you're going to get an offbeat and violent yet surprisingly poignant story of a mentally challenged kid trapped in a building with a bunny-headed killer like Easter Bunny Kill Kill. Or maybe a haphazard attempt at a serial killer biopic with a street-fighting social worker like Pig Farmer. You never know. Sometimes the guy delivers something worth watching, other times, not so much. The only guarantee is that it will most likely star Susan Priver and Robert Miano, and most definitely will star a batshit crazy Bai Ling, Priver, Miyano, and Ling all show up in Unspeakable, Beyond the Walls of Sleep, the third in a Lovecraft trilogy, after The Deep Ones and The Old Ones. Both of those films really didn't do much for me. Unspeakable, Beyond the Wall of Sleep is another story altogether. While it is a low-budget movie, Unspeakable goes for it big time. Ferrin doesn't have the budget, but reaches for the cosmic stars with all kinds of body horror, weird tentacles, and lots of penis monsters. While it does hit all of the story points of H.P. Lovecraft's original story, it adds a whole lot of wrong, and it makes the film all kinds of right. This is a practical effects lover's dream come true with elaborate tentacle creatures and strange metamorphoses of the body and soul. Expect all kinds of blood and gore. And while other lo-fi practical effects make the mistake of lingering on the effect for too long and killing the mystique of it all, Ferrin makes it all more unsettling with rapid edits, strange angles, and out-of-focus shots leaving you wondering, did I see what I think I saw? Now, don't get me wrong, this movie is not a technical marvel, and it's not an acting class in subtlety either. The actors Ferrin chooses to assemble around him in every movie add to the cheesy aspects of all of his films. While Susan Priver and Robert Miyano are not bad actors, they tend to overact every time they're in front of the camera. This works for Miyano's benefit in Unspeakable, as his character is the harbinger of a new age of cosmic chaos, so some scene chewing is in order. Priver, not so much. She can carry drama, as seen in Nightcaller, but her casting just seems strange here. Of course, Bai Ling gives another fascinating performance as a doctor who suddenly becomes overcome with lust and becomes an utter hornball. Ling is nutty as Squirrel Squat, and at least Ferrin has the good sense to wind her up and let her go and just keep the camera rolling, because it's simply train wreck fascinating to see her do what she does. The real surprise is Edward Furlong, who gives a really solid performance as Ambrose London. The large bags under his eyes and tousled hair seems to be his go-to real-life look these days, but here the look fits as the character himself suffers from sleep deprivation and sleep disorders. He really sells the character and does a great job of carrying this movie. It's definitely the best Furlong has been in a very long time. Unspeakable Beyond the Walls of Sleep is a lo-fi nightmare that deserves the recognition that it's getting. It's imaginative within its boundaries of budget, yet still stretches that to its breaking point. Yes, it's a good bad movie with all kinds of wrong, like incest, penis mutilations, sex monsters, and stars that may have seen much better years, but it's one of those guilty pleasure films that's all kinds of wrong and will make you wince and scream at times. It's not cinema at all, but it's the type of schlocky horror movie that would make 80s horror meisters like Henenlotter, Gordon, and Yuzna smile from ear to ear. The Devil and the Daylong Brothers is streaming on Tubi, Freevie, and Xumo Play from Quiver Distribution. It's directed by Brandon McCormick and written by Brandon McCormick and Nicholas Kirk. A trio of brothers, Ishmael, played by Brendan Bradley, Enoch, played by Niken Robinson, and Abraham, played by Jordan Bolden, work for the Devil's henchman Clarence, played by Mark Ashworth, to track down souls that have escaped hell in hopes to earn enough credit to find their father Nehemiah, played by David Carradine, who sold their souls to the devil long ago in this Southern Gothic musical horror film. A Southern Gothic musical horror film? I've never put that sentence together before, and because of what it is the first reason I recommend this unique blend of a film, but it's not the only one. One of the things I look for in horror movies is something I haven't seen before, and The Devil and the Daylong Brothers truly is a unique one. Now, I know there are those who hate musicals, and I respect that, soulless heathens that you are, but as long as the music is good and meshes well with the story, I've been known to tap a toe and shed a tear at musicals. Well, this film will make you stomp your feet and holler out loud, because that's what happened to me. The songs were surprisingly catchy and well done, given the smaller size and scope of the film, and they function like good musical numbers should by highlighting the inner monologues and shared themes of the story. No, this isn't like Joker 2, which basically has people burst into a trendy song that sometimes has something to do with the situation, or sometimes just a song that the director or singer likes. I don't know where Brandon McCormick and Nicholas Kirk come from, but I guarantee they are theater folk, as this film feels like an expansive stage play come to life. Everyone knows about how Southerners like to sell their soul to the devil at the crossroads, and I've actually seen some of those films with music that actually attempt to tell that story, like the underseen classic Crossroads, and of course Tenacious D's Pick of Destiny. But never has it played out as grungy and electrifying as it does with The Devil and the DAYLONG Brothers. It helps that the cast can sing like the Dickens. All three of the leads, the titular DAYLONG brothers, sing their hearts out as they go on this blood-soaked adventure to reclaim their souls. Each get their chance to express their inner souls with at least one song, making each of them unique and memorable. The trio also have distinct looks, wearing clothing that feels worn and individual. These filmmakers and actors have clearly put a lot of time in developing these characters, and that work makes it all feel like few others. On top of the brothers, literally sometimes even, is Frankie, played by Margaret Qualley's sister Rainey. She plays a seductress and seeker of her own redemption and sports one hell of a voice. While the brothers take center stage, Qualley does her best to steal every scene she's in with her scandalous beauty, devilish charm, and powerful singing voice. And damn, David Carradine's role is small, but does he get a scene that is some of the more powerful and soulful performances I've seen from the actor since, well, ever. As I said before, this film feels like an adapted stage play, which is fun, but if I have to criticize it a bit, I'd say that more often than not, the actors playing the DAYLONG brothers are playing for the cheap seats. They're supposed to be rambunctious brothers who get into scuffles and then forget about it 5 minutes later, but man are they a hyper trio, constantly threatening each other, getting into each other's faces, and stomping around in anger. I get it, these guys most likely have theatrical training and need to project themselves all the way to the back of the theater, but subtle is not how I would describe this kind of acting style. But that's what makes the film so highly explosive. The brothers are constantly on the run from demons, devils, and their own past. The bullets fly furiously, and I love the way the filmmakers animate the bullets so we can see them streaming past the brothers like mad fireflies. There's a pure creative energy pulsing through each and every scene. Seeing these filmmakers make such a vivid movie has made me a lifelong fan, and I can't wait to see what they have planned next. This is a movie that makes me nostalgic for the days of the old music video, as The Devil and the DAYLONG Brothers plays like a series of videos from the same band that tell a distinct story. This is one hell of a good time. I've seen it twice and plan on sharing it with as many people as I can. It plays like a musical version of Justified meets Brimstone. Does anyone remember Brimstone? Man, I love that show. Gone too soon. That Brimstone. Anyway, The Devil and the DAYLONG Brothers is just a unique gem of a film that exemplifies the creative potential of the horror medium. Crank up the volume and rock out to this mashup of southern fried gothic crime, soul-selling horror, and tunes that will burrow into your brain. Well, there's a quartet of films that shows how broad the genre of horror truly is. Have you seen any of these films? Are you gonna seek them out? And do you remember Brimstone? Let me know down in the comments. Please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your reality. You're